Hey, thanks for getting my stuff from Resin. I appreciate you not killing him. He's actually a pretty cool lion.
Not a problem, David. He said he got your invitation to your birthday celebration and plans on being there. Unless something comes up with an experiment that he said he's doing on some orcs.
Oh, cool. Thanks for telling me. I'm actually making an army for Necrons. I'm enjoying them, but I really hate their models.
Why is that?
Tiny little pieces that fit into tiny little holes that need tiny little dexterous hands. Now I've got tiny little hands, but my diabetes does not allow me to have much dexterity in them. These things are really hard to put together, and if you drop something, oh boy. Here's a picture of one of my most recent models, a Necron Psychomancer. I actually bought it accidentally, mixed it up with something else, but it's not a bad unit. Not a good unit, but not bad. It can be funny to use. But I've actually found the Abyssal Lance, but these things are so tiny, if you drop something, you may never find it. In all honesty, that's the problem with most of these models. Necrons and Eldar of all kinds have this issue the most. At least the Eldar vehicles have huge pieces with tiny pieces inside, but the Necrons models have nothing but tiny bits. Hell, look at this one! It's a rib cage. I was actually prepared to put a sniper rifle I have an extra of on this Psychomancer, which might have actually looked nice, honestly. But it's so easy to accidentally lose a piece and need to replace it with something else. In some cases, this is pretty cool. Actually, I can't think of a combo with Necrons that isn't cool. Maybe I'll get Resin the Infinite model and do that when his abilities don't suck. Don't tell Resin I said that.
I think he probably watches your videos.
Ew. Well, I think my biggest issue with the Necrons is actually getting certain models. I know that any sort of Supreme Commander model will always be bought out on site. I got lucky and bought a model half made for about 60 bucks off. At least, I hope I did. Who knows with Warp Fire, someone might have bought the piece literally 30 seconds before me. Who knows? But then you got other things. Nemesaur Zandrak is no longer available through Play or on Warhammer's website. The Locust Heavy Destroyer is constantly out of stock on website, but in stores it's usually there despite being a push-fit model. The Chronomancer is usually sold out as well, which I've seen people use the Chronomancer to proxy the Plasmancer, which we'll get into in a moment. There's also two separate overlords, each with different abilities on the table, so you could easily buy the wrong one. Canoptic models and the Cryptek keyword are also usually gone, though anything with the Mancer in its name is a Cryptek, so there's plenty of options. Even Orc and the Diviner is a Cryptek. The Catan shards are very powerful, and honestly, I understand that they got an indirect nerf. They're also very hard to get your hands on. I got lucky and got my hands on a Deceiver model for about 20% off, more or less. Of course, most Catan shards are made of resin, sometimes called Finecast, and these models suck. They're even harder to put together. Here's a picture of my Catan model. Look at this thing. You see that part across the chest? Yeah, that doesn't need to be its own piece. And people have mentioned that it never fits right either. Someone recommended running the model under hot water while trying to force the damn thing into the right shape. The resin models really need to be replaced with plastic models, but they're also usually cheaper than the plastic models, so there's a bit of an issue. I like money saved, and given the cost of enjoying this hobby, I shouldn't be complaining about a price reduce. Hell, that's why I purchased through Warp Fire in most cases. Of course, I mentioned the Plasmancer. Let's talk about getting your hand on that. I have a single model that I am desperately looking for, the Canoptic Reanimator. This thing looks remarkably like the Doomstalker, right? I thought they used the same kit, like how the Immortals and Deathmarks are from the same kit, or how the Transcended Catan and Obelisk is made from the Tesseract Vault kit. Well, I found out right before buying a Doomstalker kit that it is not using the same kit, because the Doomstalker is a lot bigger. So how do you get the Reanimator? Well, there's two ways. If you were in the past, you could have bought it through the Indominus box set, but that's not available now. So how do you get this thing? Well, now you need to buy a Royal Court box set, which costs 125 USD. This box comes with a few other things too, which actually make the box worth it. A Plasmancer, a Scorpec Lord, and 2 Cryptothralls. Of course, as I mentioned before, there's some units that you could proxy here. The Plasmancer is about the same size and look as the Chronomancer. The Scorpec Lord could easily be kit bashed from destroyers with a Primaris Dreadnought base. Cryptothralls are actually surprisingly good, though their base size is the same as the Intercessors. Easy to get and remake. The Reanimators, however, uses 60mm base size, which is the same size as Guilliman's base. There's not a lot that use them. Old Dreadnoughts use that size and not a whole lot else, but there's also nothing that you can use to replace it. Cryptothralls are also hard to replace with something. You could probably kit bash flayed ones to make it though. Now, these models are actually pretty fine, but the fact that the Reanimator is an outlier, can't be replaced with anything, actually makes it rather difficult. There's definitely some models that use the base size. I'm certain you could find the base itself rather easily, but finding the pieces to use on said base is damn near impossible. I found a proxy on Etsy, and that's my only option. Every time I find something I can use on Etsy, GW snipes them with a Stalker bolt round. Honestly, the difficulty to get some of these models are less to do with how available and more to do with GW's ability to keep stocked with how popular 10th edition has become. They're building another factory for models, but they really should be building at least one factory on each continent where sales are worth it. North America, Australia, probably South America too, a couple in Asia, just because of how China acts with its surrounding nations. Instead, the company is almost exclusively stationed in Nottingham. No, a Warhammer or Games Workshop official store does not count as their stationing. They do not build in those stores. Those stores are sales locations that get priority of stocking. Hell, I talked about the smaller stores having trouble getting product from GW a few months ago, and the website is a bit better, but not by much. It gets slapped every time there's a new announcement. There are ways to make this better, but I think they don't make this better to prevent a botting situation, which they're trying to fight, but they can't fight that well. Scalpers are gonna always do their best to fuck over the average customer. Don't get me wrong, I'm gonna finish this Necrons army. I want to show it to Resin, and I want to show it off when I finally talk about the Necrons Codex. The fact that a meme army made by Warhammer won the Las Vegas Open competition is hilarious to me. I really want to talk about the Necrons Codex before it gets absolutely shafted in a few months, when they get enough information about the armies to actually nerf it into oblivion like they did with planes. My other issue, as I mentioned, is mostly from my own physical issues. I've worked around them and will work around them more, because I literally do not know the definition of the phrase give up. It's just not two words I understand without a never before it. And my final problem with Necrons models is a similar issue to the Eldari models. Why is there so much damn resin? Stop using these shitty things that do not fit together or melt in humid, hot environments like my house in Florida. And I need to prepare for my birthday next week, Lion, so shove off.